What's going on, everybody? Looks like we're live again. Sorry, we're running a little bit late tonight. It's going to be a short night, too. I'm not feeling real well, and which is one of the reasons I was running a little bit late. But we may have some questions from from Saturday's session that some people may have, so I jumped on here so we could try to answer a few of those if we could. Let me share this link. Hope everybody's having a good week so far. Let me get some links out. Yeah, I'm not feeling very well. Having good days and bad days. I guess that's part of getting old. Let me get these links together. Man, I hate the way the new Windows messes with tabs. I don't know why they always got to mess with shit there. That's better. I don't know how I fixed it, but okay. What's up, Mr. Melrose? How things down there in Tennessee? It's like every time I open this, I see interesting posts I want to read. I can't. That's funny. Just a minute here. So, Michael, what's going on down there? I think this week or this weekend, David Masters and maybe some others are going to do their jar thing or something. Maybe Jason Geddes. I can't remember who all is going to be there. But something's going on this weekend down there. I hope you're going to be there for it. Be an opportune time to meet some of those people and help them celebrate their jar. Something I can't remember exactly what the details were, but both of them may be working on their legal jar down there this weekend. Let me get done sharing these links. Going on, Kenny? Yeah, the traffic. They just can't. Those mountains are kind of limited to the roads you can build. You just can't. Not so easy to widen them and make them better. But yeah, there's a lot of traffic down there. A lot of people down there on vacation. I guess school's going back in session this week and next week in a lot of places, and people are taking advantage of the last week of school or not having school and getting their vacation time in. I think school starts here this next week. Yeah, I'd be glad to see the kids back in school. They play baseball on my street, and I keep worrying I'm gonna come out to a busted windshield or huge dings in my car. One of these days. About done with these links. Anytime they're gonna put the skids on me. Not yet. Bam. I know it. I was down to the wire. Yeah, I saw the picture that you posted. That's pretty cool. What's going up, Tyler? Just finished your run. Turned out great. That's awesome, brother. That's good news. What's going on, Scott? What's going on, Clint? Yeah, Clint's been sleeping in on us. He missed most of the last episode. That's all right. Scott filled in for you. He helped us out a lot. I appreciate y'all. Just moonshine. We're not talking about shiners so much. It's just about the craft here. Learning about the craft. Doing pretty good. How you doing, Mr. Dance? Yeah, Chris, we don't talk about shiners much on here. I guess he's talking about he's on vacation down there in Mark and Digger, meeting and greeting. And I guess Jason and Mark are probably, or Matt's doing their, or David is doing their jar this week, I guess. So hope everybody's having a good week. Happy hump day. So does anybody have any questions from last week? We went over quite a bit from beginning to end, and I know we left a few gaps, but I did come across a pretty good chart somebody posted in one of the groups that helps illustrate what I've been talking about. Hopefully y'all can see this. Now y'all remember on the chart here, let me pull the chart up first, and we can talk about this a little bit. Pretty important for those that age. Remember we were talking about the chart here and how sometimes people take that jar 7 and jar 15, maybe even a little bit deeper down here in the tails to get more of these oils when they do long-term aging. Whereas like a white dog, they would omit those, but when you age, how those esterify into some interesting flavors. But somebody in one of the groups, I can't remember which group it was, seemed like a fairly intelligent guy too. He was talking about some science and stuff, so we need to kind of get him on here, invite him in, and get some more people in here that can help and are knowledgeable, and get them in the DIY group. But here's a pretty good chart that shows how this overruns. And remember when I was talking about this chart as well, when I was talking about this chart, how you get sometimes you'll get some sweet esters around jar 7 and 8. Well, that's what this chart is showing, is how you get some of these fruity esters. Now this is a head cut here. This would be the next jar, that's part of the hearts, right? And this would be the very end of the heads. Well, this is long-term aging. See how this line cuts, and it includes that jar 7, in that chart right there. So this is what I was talking about. When you age, a lot of times they'll include that jar because the aging process will convert a lot of those esters, or a lot of those acids and alcohol, and these oils into some interesting esters. And there's some good flavors that you can get right here at the on your very low heads that I talk about as well. And this illustrates those. So interesting, chart, and kind of reinforces what I've been talking about out, when you can take those extra jars on each end when you're long-term aging and get some interesting flavors out of it. Pretty good chart. I'll add this to the DIY and to the militia page as well. But yeah, this would be your regular cut if you're making a white dog, right where it says ideal cut. But if you're aging it, you stretch that out to here. And then for a brandy, they say keep more of this headsy end with your sweet flavors in the low heads and eliminate the high tails. And then in rum, I guess they kind of do in between. But for long-term aging, yeah, you can include that jar 7 and 15. So I thought it was pretty interesting. Yeah, it probably would if I knew how to do that. But yeah, it does basically. That's what it's doing. Jar 7, I guess, would be about right there, and jar 15 would be right here on this side. So this would be jar 7 right here, and this would be jar 15 here. So, but it helps illustrate what I was talking about, how you can take that extra jar on each end for long-term aging, because what happens is the alcohol and those acids mix together and they start breaking down these oils. And when they do, it creates some interesting flavors. And that doesn't matter whether it's in a barrel or in a jar, that chemical process continues over time. So that's how a lot of people, I know a lot of you may have done it before. You'll make some, okay shine. It's like, that's not all that great. I'm going to just put that aside for a while. I'm going to drink this good stuff. Maybe I'll come back to that later. And then you go back to it later and it's like, well, I don't remember it being this good. Damn, it seems like it's better. It must just be me. It just must be, everybody always thinks it must just be me that makes it maybe thinking it tastes better or something, but it's not. Those processes are taking place, and it's actually changing things over time. So you're creating a bunch of flavonoids and flavors that you normally wouldn't have had you not included those extra jars, extra jars on each end. So, and a lot of times too, it helps. Some of these acids and stuff help pull out. This is generally a little higher proof, and it helps pull some more oils out of the wood as well, and tannins. So you get a little bit more flavor, and then it converts this oily, earthy. It's a pretty good drink, but I like that chart. It's a new chart I hadn't seen before. I don't know if the guy made it or if he found it somewhere, but I told him I'd give him Giancarlo Gelpi, I think that's his name. I'll have to give him. I added his name to the Giancarlo Gelp. I added his name to the title so I could give him credit for it. I would with these other charts, but I don't know who made them. They've been around for ages. This was new that he posted, and he said he made it. So that's awesome. I'm glad he did. And we're going to have to invite him over. Seemed like a fairly knowledgeable guy. Yeah, clean out. There is a lot of alcohol, but I generally just, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I I don't think I'm going to try to get, 1 through 4, especially that little bit, because I know how much easier it is to get down here without getting real bad flavors, because it seems like the ethyl acetate, the aldehydes, acetones, and some of these higher propanols and stuff, it just has a isopropanols, there are all kinds of different alcohols and higher volatiles in here that just has a horrible taste, man. I hate trying to get them out. But, like I've always said, this, when it gets down to here, if you can make a real good cut, you can get some pretty good flavors out of this jar here. There'll be some sweetness because actually this blue changes, has a different chemical composition as it degrades. So there's less acetone and probably less ethyl acetate. I don't know. But it does have a little better, has some sweetness to it. Yeah, I agree, Clint. And yeah, it's probably a good point. If you have, a good column with bubble plates and all that, you may be able to separate that a little bit easier. Probably too. I haven't really fooled with it much since I've got a column. I've just always, ran the regular pot still mode and not really tried to do anything with my column. But yeah, I've always just pitched them. But I do definitely save tails and work with those because I found that it's just a lot easier to separate that blue and green than it is that light blue and dark blue. But with a making a neutral, probably with a column with some bubble plates, a good column, not just a tube, but good bubble plate scrubbing column. It probably would help remove a lot of those, or a fractional column would definitely remove them. But I really like the chart, so it's something I'm going to add for people to read and use in my future discussions about, that high or low head jar and that high tail jar, and how you want to use it if you're aging long term, but really don't want to fool with it if it's a white dog. It's kind of the difference, and it's really difficult to make a good tasting white dog, and a lot of people expect it to taste more like a neutral or an aged spirit, and it's just that until you get used to it, it's not like that. So did anybody have any questions from last week? Looks like we don't have as many as usual in here. Slow week. Everybody busy, I guess, going back to school and getting the kids ready for going back to school. And some people on vacation. Mr. Melrose down there in Tennessee, living it up, living the dream, going to Sugarlands. Yeah, let me know if my audio comes in and out. It was drawing my attention last week that my audio sometimes comes in and goes out, and sometimes it's hard to hear me. Sometimes I'm a little bit louder, and I don't know if it's noise canceling when I use this fan versus not. You've been working, yeah. It's things cooling off a little bit now that everybody's got a chance to get some things done. I guess everybody's staying in while it's 100 degrees now that it's a little cooler, and so you on back on the weekends off, or I know Mark's got a pretty odd schedule. He'll work like 4 months on, where he'll work weekends, and then he'll get a few months off where he doesn't work the weekends. So that's kind of tough to work those in and out. How things been going, man? I don't know if y'all know Mark and Cassie. Mark's daughter Cassie and him do a podcast, and of course he does podcasts with Lisa, and Great guy, good friend. And now his daughter's getting back into it. She's had to get some schoolwork caught up, and now she's, oh, you're back to working weekends? Yeah. Yeah, it sucks. Your 4-inch by 5-foot pack column will separate that stuff. Yeah. Do I think a plastic mixer will leach into a mash if it's used for mixing while cooking? No, no. There's some issues about microplastics and stuff. I'm not a real big fan of plastics, but the alcohol content is so low, you're not going to get, it's not going to be a solvent for, the plastic. It's not going to break it down as if it probably would if it's 180 proof. Um, Acetone would probably be something that you're more concerned with plastics than just the ethanol. But if you're talking about using it while you're just cooking your corn, absolutely not. Definitely not. Because at that point in time, you don't even have, any alcohol at all built up. You're just breaking down your starches and gelatinizing your corn. So, yeah, I'd say using your plastics will be fine then. I mean, we store, I'd say it also depend on the plastic, the composition of the plastic. I know HDPE and high density polyethylene and PET, polyethylene toluene, polyethyl toluene, I think is both a couple of plastics that do well with NLEPE, low density polyethylene. All those do pretty well with ethanol. But if you look on your charts, really acetone and ethyl acetates and your acetaldehydes, that's really what you want to look at and how they affect the plastics. The ethanol itself isn't generally too bad, but if you get real high concentrations of the heads, that will have an impact on some of your plastics. All right, brother, take it easy. Thanks for dropping in. Hang out if you get a chance. Yeah, Mark and Cassie do a podcast. What are you doing on Thursdays? And Lisa on Tuesdays. I can't remember none of the days. Yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah. So you're building your little mini fractional column. If y'all check out DIY Shiny Stuff page, got a buddy of mine, Eric Ayers, and I, started the page, and he created a fractional distillation, a continuous column. It was pretty cool back in the day. A little mini one. It was pretty neat. I guess you could. I would probably, I'm not sure what the end goal is, just to break them down, let them rot naturally. I would tend to want to pour some hot water. You just wanting the wild yeast to do it and to ferment it that way. I mean, it's the old school way of doing it. I mean, that's going way back. Just letting it, let nature take its course. I tend to want to have a little bit more control. I like controlling things a little bit more tightly, get more consistent results that way. But you never know. I mean, you might get some wild yeast on there that works out real well. And what's going on, Jay? Thanks, sir. So it just depends. I like being in control so I can get consistency. So the only difference would be, the difference in the apples that I used and what flavors those brought and sugars that they had. But there's absolutely nothing wrong with doing it the old school way for sure. Welcome back, brother. Actually, the guy that had that chart might have been in the distiller. I can't remember which group it was. Let me look at my group list of groups and I'll be able to tell you. Let's see. Let's see what group that fellow was in. Home Distillers Club is the group that he was in that I pulled that from. I need to send him. I should have before this session so he can see me use his chart. But yeah, we'll have to send him an invite. Yeah, let's get back to the question. Just fill 55-gallon drum with apples. Don't want to break them down. I would probably have to add me some hot apple juice, 160, 70 degree apple juice, kind of pasteurize them a little bit and kill some of the bacteria, because if there's bird shit on them and other stuff, something that you don't want to kind of take hold in your fermentation and get rid of the wild yeast. That way I can add the yeast that I know is good and kind of get a result that I know is going to be good instead of rolling the dice. But I mean, you certainly can, but I do agree that adding some sugars would probably be a good idea. That way you'll get a little bit better um, production out of it. So I started a new mash, and it's my first time using diammonium phosphate, little DAP for yeast nutrient, and I'm hoping I didn't overdo it. So my question is, can you overdo it? Yeah, actually, nutrients are something that you don't want to overdo, and you can. Most will give you, a teaspoon per gallon kind of thing, and I always underdo it just to be on the safe side. Time will tell. I actually once before though, I was out of town, and no, I take that back. That was different. I was adding something to kill the yeast. That was when I was adding potassium metabisulfate to kill the yeast off. And I had my fiance do it, and she way overdid it, and it took a while to gas that shit off. But yeah, it is. You can over nutrient. Um, how bad did you overdo it? Or are you sure you overdid it? You think you may have, or for sure did? And if it's just a little bit, probably not so bad. But if you do too much, it can affect your flavor. But yeah, I agree. Yeah, and if you can find some apple juice really cheap, that is a really good way to get volume with good apple flavor because it takes like 20 some pounds of apples to make a gallon of juice. The average apple, I guess some might be juicier than others. I heard somebody talking the other day. They gave it a stat that was much, much less. And I'm like, man, those must have been some pretty big apples or some very juicy apples. But I think standard is like 20, 22 apples to make a gallon of juice. So, that's a lot of apples. And if you can just get that 100% juice without the preservatives in it, that's pretty good stuff to heat up and dissolve your sugars in and add, and you don't lose flavor that way. Because anytime you add water, you're diluting. And that's especially true if you're going to do like just a wine. You definitely would be much better off using the apple juice than a water and sugar if you're making a wine, because it's really easy to dilute the flavor in those wines. But for brandies, it's not as critical. You know, you can make up for it in the sugar and with a little bit of infusion with some apple pie filling or something like that. Yeah, it's sure can. The thump keg basically doubles, and the way it works is you've okay, if you're looking at the Moonshine Militia logo next to me, you'll see a thumper right in the middle there. You'll see the higher pipe comes in, and that pipe goes almost all the way to the bottom. That's your downcomer. And then the pipe to the right goes just under the surface of the top of the barrel, out and over. Basically, what's happening in here is you've got your vapor, and it comes in, and it heats up, and it builds up, and it condenses, okay, as it hits this cool thumper. So it'll cool, it'll condense, and after it condenses, it starts building up liquid in the bottom of the barrel here, and you've got more steam coming in always and heating it up, heating it up, heating it up. Once it gets to the critical temperature of where it will start boiling, 198 or so, then it'll start cooking off again in here. So you get a second distillation, excuse me. And as you get that second distillation, water's always going to be left behind in the thumper. So you've essentially removed water from it. That's all it's basically doing, is removing water from the vapor and then sending out a more concentrated vapor with a higher proof of alcohol. That's the basis on how the thumper works. Oh no, you'll be fine. It probably like that a lot more than the 100 degrees that it was not too long ago, especially if it's outside. But yeah, it'll be fine. Yeah, I tell you what, I saw I don't know if you've seen it or not, but it is the neatest, slickest. I met the guy actually in Maggie Valley. I can't remember his name. I'm horrible with names, but I remember his face. The guy that posted on I guess in the militia page, or it's one of the pages that I saw, but he got a ice, these ice shavers that you put ice in this thing, and you push it down, the lever down, and it pushes this ice through some blades that shaves it and makes slushies, right? We bought one of those, and he was using it for breaking down his apples and stuff, and pears, I guess, and all his fruits and stuff. And man, that stuff goes through those apples so fast and so efficiently. It's definitely, I've seen people use the sink disposals. They set those up and just shove apples down it, and it spits them out. Thing about those is those tend to overheat a little bit because they're used to having water as part of the coolant in keeping that motor cool and stuff while it's working, and it's not really designed for longer term use, but it works well. But this ice shaver, man, it goes through those apples. I mean, just drop one in, zoom, drop one in, zoom, drop one in. I mean, just that quick, and it was just a slushy. It did a great job. So if you can look for these ice shavers um, on Amazon, maybe eBay, some of these other places, Bever probably has one by now. Um, Definitely, if you do a lot of fruit like that, I'd say it probably go through a peach pretty quick too. Just get your pits out. I don't think you'd have to worry too much about apple seeds getting ground up, but if you are, you can always split them in half and get your seeds out, core it a little bit. But he was just going through them whole, man, and I doubt you're going to really affect too many seeds where it's going to bother you a whole lot. Something you don't want to do though, to get a lot of those seeds in you. But yeah, it's how much does it run a batch of mash if a very small amount of corn is scorched is such a small amount you can't smell it in the mash? I go ahead and run it. I mean, it's the damage is done. You can't undo it. It usually, if it's, how bad is it? It'll be a good lesson. If it's just very, very light, it may not have a huge impact. You may be able to run it on a column if it does and get rid of that little bit of taste. Usually scorching is one of the few things that you can't overcome, but that's generally a heavier scorch. If it's just real light and just a few kernels got, blackened a little bit, probably not going to be a big deal. But if you had a lot stuck to your pan and it was pretty thick, and, go ahead and do it and run it. But just do so knowing that it may not work out. So I wouldn't put any, expensive malts or, any, high price sugars or anything like that in it. I just use a table sugar and just do the corn alone and convert it with the amylase and add a little bit of sugar and see what happens instead of adding some expensive malts or anything like that. I wouldn't. Jonathan, they do make some replacement gaskets for those. I think most of those are actually like a PTFE. They're like a harder plastic. And I think you can get some of the silicone, the actual silicone ones. But either way, they do make some replacement ones. And if you got the 3-pot bever, I would, be serious about looking into drilling the top, using a bulkhead fitting, and coming out with something larger, and copper. That's what most people do. Philbilly.com or philbillymoonshine.com. They've got all kinds of stuff that they can help you with, and just get up with them, and they'll walk you through it. They'll tell you what you need, and if you want, you can buy it from them. If not, you can get it elsewhere, but they'll still help you. And that's one of the great things about Ian and Philbilly. They're not just in it to make money. They're helping people, and they'll say, if you want to buy what we've got, fine. But if you want to build it yourself, we'll help you build it. How many people do that? So yeah, I would definitely look into increasing the size of the plumbing too, coming out of it. How many gallon is there, Jonathan? Yeah, eventually, when I get time and room to have a dedicated shine shack, I'll probably be able to do something like that too, Clint, and just have a little diverter. Anytime I want to, do a fractional strip, I'll be able to just divert it to that column and do that. Yeah, yeah. I was on yesterday, £7 for a 50-pound bag. $7, I mean, for a 50-pound bag, £7, like we're spending shillings, $7 for a 50-pound bag. It's not bad, but you can get even less from the farmers. Yeah, it can affect your flavors for sure. Like so, yeah, it's got a little bit of length to it. It almost, well, it goes about down to my belly button. If I were to straighten it out, I think I'm about a, well, I'm about to the belly button if I hold it, pull it down, but it's curly. Yeah, got my ZZ top going on, man. Is it? Hell yeah, man. Michigan's got a lot of good stuff up there. Especially those cherries, man. Those are expensive. Everything else is pretty cheap. Apples and corn I can get all day, but cherries, man. I made some cherry wine a few years back, and I picked up some good cherries that were inexpensive at the store. I only buy them if they're on sale. They've got to be on a pretty good sale because it takes a lot. Made some really good cherry wine, man. It was so good. Everybody loved it. It was awesome. Did they? that happened to me too. It's like I think the same thing happened. It was I hope that explained the thump cake for you. If it, let me see if I've got some kind of diagram. Let me go through these questions here, and once I get a little bit of slack, I'll dig through and find us a diagram that illustrates what I'm talking about. Y'all let me know. I'm going to turn this fan on. I get hot flashes. I don't know. Probably it's getting old, but I get sweaty, man, and I have to turn the fan on. I like having a fan on me most. Let me turn this that a little bit louder, I guess. Oh shit! Let me know if that affects my microphone any. Somebody said last week that when I turned these fans on, the noise canceling in my microphone caused my voice levels to drop a little bit. Why they didn't tell me that during the damn podcast, but I do appreciate you letting me know, brother. Yeah, if it's a light scorch and you can't smell it, it could be okay. I'd go ahead and run it anyway and see what happens. You know, all you're going to be out some time in yeast at this point, right? So let's see what happens. So it wasn't too bad. That should be all right. Be real conscious about how the heat underneath is focused too. What kind of burner were you using? Or that's why a lot of people are doing the steep method these days and trying to, instead of using a standard fermenter, they're using like a cooler or an insulated um, uh, I don't know, what would you call it, a steeping drum. Probably not the best description, but steeping drum. Basically, you can get a big drum and put a smaller drum in it and foam around it, or insulate around it. Um, if I use beer kegs, I can't use aluminum. Can I? Stainless. Stainless, yeah, I would stick with the stainless. Aluminum, once aluminum's fine for like boiling water and for cooking mash and all that, perfectly fine. When aluminum kind of becomes a problem, and that's debatable, and I don't want to open up that can of worms for a big scientific debate on aluminum ions and Alzheimer's and all that research. Uh, that's way above my pay grade. But once you start getting really acidic stuff in there, it starts breaking down some of the aluminum ions, and the acid will start eating away at some. It'll cause pitting in your aluminum pots and stuff. So it's probably not good for distilling in, because your mash can get pretty acidic. It's probably not real great to ferment in because of the same. Your mash gets pretty acidic, and a lot of those aluminum ions can kind of come off and be a problem. A lot of people say the same about using the plastic drums. There's a lot of uh, science and a lot of people talking about these microplastics and stuff these days, and how it's becoming a problem. So, I haven't really delved into the science of it much, and I have looked, and I do know that ethanol in its pure form doesn't really affect polyethyltoluene or high density polyethylene, but again, the heads will. The ethyl acetates, the acetaldehydes, and your acetone, those will affect the plastics. So, keeping, but when you're just mashing in, you don't really have high concentrations of alcohol or, these compounds. So, not as big an issue, but there might be small amounts coming out. Does it carry over to distillation? I don't know that there's been research on that, but people are being a little bit more and more concerned about microplastics in our diets and in our systems these days. So that's definitely something to think about, and Um, but aluminum, I would say, as long as you're using it just to boil water or cook your corn or things like that, you're not going to have a problem with it. But as long as it doesn't come into high acidic, you know, mashes and things, because your mash will get acidic. So I wouldn't ferment in it and I wouldn't distill in it, but it's perfectly fine for boiling water, and for cooking. Got a drinker here, huh? Man, I'm getting a little bit old, but 10 years ago, 20 years ago, you lost that $50. That's all I can say. I don't know. I guess 2 quarts. I drank just about 2 quarts last Maggie Valley. Not this year, but last year. Mr. Morgan, that was in here just a minute ago, Mark Morgan, can attest to that. I probably drank about a quart before I got to their cabin, and then while I was at their cabin, I drank. He gave me a quart of coffee, Shine, and I think there's only about that much left in the bottom of that quart, but I'd had a lot of drinks of others, so I was definitely might have been over 2 quarts in, but it gets to the point where you just really you're toxifying your body and giving yourself alcohol poisoning. So one of us would win, but both of us would pay, and that's just not good. But I know a lot of people that would take that challenge happily. Yeah, most all kegs are stainless steel these days. I don't think there might be some places in Europe that still uses aluminum in their kegs, but some of the European beers and stuff, but all the American beers and stuff from here um, are all definitely stainless. Yeah, the real old ones are aluminum, but most everything is stainless these days. Yeah, cutting the top out, using it for a boiler, a lot of people do that with those aluminum ones, but best to sell those to some hot rodder that wants to use it for a gas tank, or just take it to the scrap yards and get your aluminum out of it. And 9.6 gallon. Yeah, I'd up my plumbing a little bit on the lids. I don't know if you're still using the original condenser, but I would definitely upgrade the condenser as well. Uh, Maybe go with a 1/2 inch or 5/8 plumbing would definitely help things out a bit. What's going on, Dave? What's up, brother? I ain't seen you in a little bit. Oh, that's good. Yeah, I think my noise canceling mic was, I think this other fan that's kind of noisy, it was canceling that noise, and it's canceling a little bit of my noise as well. I wouldn't worry about it at this point, Casey. If it is a major concern, one thing that you can do is do another mash real quickly. Put you together another corn mash or something, and just add this to it, and dilute the nutrients that way. Just add another mash to it, or add more ingredients. I'm not sure what all you got mashed in. If it's got water and sugar, maybe you could add a little more water and sugar. It's probably going to make it hot, but I'd rather it be hot than have that off taste of a turbo and too much nutrients. What's going on, Richard? How you doing, brother? How are you and Charlene this evening? Yeah, if you get on Marketplace, on Facebook Marketplace, yeah, 35, $40 all day. Kegs. I know usually, but they're never around me. It's always around Ohio or Tennessee. It's like, why is there never any freaking Kentucky, man? There's just like always a bunch in Ohio, some in Tennessee, but Ohio is like, yeah, the cheap keg capital of the damn world. So if you're close to Ohio or Michigan, I guess you can pick them up. What's up, Caitlin? Good to see you, brother. Yeah, I just ran it. Oh boy, well, that's a toughie. Um, at this point, you can either let it go, or like I say, if you want to double up the mash, if you're that concerned, you could, add more water and your blue agave and little bit of sweetener with it, and see if that fixes your problem. Do you know if you use too much? I mean, does it say, a teaspoon per gallon or anything like that, and you accidentally did a tablespoon instead, or what's the situation? Something going on, Gary? Good to see you, brother. Yeah, me too, brother. What's going on, Tim? Good to see you, brother. Feral kids. Well, those feral kids are back. Are they going back to school this week? They are here. Awesome. I love the sound of that. Yeah, Ann made me some stuffed peppers. We had she had an interesting combination. We had some manwiches, the little manwich mix you make the burger sandwich with. We had some of those, and she had a bunch of extra manwich left over. So she decided to add rice and some spice and some other things, and made stuffed peppers out of it. Man, they are fantastic. They're really good. Yep, you saw me there, brother. I was there in flesh anyway. Spirit, I was pretty lit the whole time. Yeah, we. I wasn't as bad this year as last year. Though. Last year I got way too drunk. Man, I was hungover for 3 days after Maggie. We left Sunday and I was feeling it Wednesday. When I did my podcast, I was feeling like shit. It was bad. It was bad. That's when I drank the 2 quarts plus that night. It was bad. Oh yeah, yeah. I'll be in Beattyville for sure, brother. For sure. Awesome. That sounds good, brother. 8 months of age. Oh, they did go last week. Yeah, yeah. Ours is going back this week. Yeah, that's what I do. If I was really concerned about it, and I haven't heard yet, but I mean, did you mistake teaspoons or tablespoons for teaspoons? I know that's easy to do. TSP or TBSP. I've made that mistake. So if that's the case, then I probably would do a second mash if you had that much more in there. If it's just a tad bit over, you know, probably not going to be that big a deal. But in the future, always kind of just underdo it a little bit, 10% less maybe than what they call for, because that is something that can be overdone. And it's important to have them, but it's important not to use too much of them. A lot of people think, oh, a little bit helps, a whole lot will help a whole lot more. That's not the case. I don't know, Clint. I don't think there's much yan and fan in any of the blue agave and any of the stuff. So I think tequila, should probably benefit from a little bit of a nutrient, and of course the oyster shells. But yeah, in the grains, if it's just like corn actually, when you just do all corn, could use a tad of nutrients. You know, there's really not enough yan and fan in just corn, unless it's malted corn. But anytime you add any of the seed grains, the rye, the wheats, the oats, the barleys, whether they're malted or not, they usually have the yan and fan in them. But I'm not sure if just the blue agave would be enough or have any at all. I mean, it needs the yan and fan. I would definitely add it to a tequila. But again, never use as much as they say. I always use a little bit less than what they say because I think they want you to. Yeah, man, that looked good, didn't it? That fried chicken looked fantastic too, man. That shit looked really good and crunchy. It was a good. I don't know if his old lady made that or if he did or if he bought that from somewhere, but that chicken crust looked pretty damn good. It looked very crunchy. Can't just ask. Now I'm doing a search to see if it's got. I just can't say yan and fan and hey, I know what you're talking about. They should know what I'm talking about now if it's watching me. Let's see. Yeah, you need to use a little bit of nutrients with the blue agave. It doesn't have enough. According to Scott Laboratories, yeah, it doesn't, but it does have some. I'm surprised it has any. It does have some though. I'm surprised. I didn't think it would have any. It just doesn't have enough. So just you cut way back on it. But yeah, it says it needs additional yan and fan for a vigorous fermentation, according to Scott Laboratory. So, that looks interesting. I'll have to come back here and look, see what they got here. This is a good. Better look. This looks like a good source of info. I'll have to save that. It's about nutrients. Let me see if I can share the link in here. So y'all can go read a little bit. Yeah, you should Clint. You should see that corn fritter sandwich he made with corn fritters. Look like pancakes, kind of. Yeah, definitely smash that like and subscribe. And a lot of people aren't getting notifications, so maybe join the 101 Distilling podcast page and follow that, and it might give you the notification because that's the one I directly stream from. But I stream too all the Fieldbillies and the malicious stuff as well. But the main one that I stream from is the Distilling 101 Distiller Chat, and I've got a podcast page for that. But check out this Scott Lab yeast nutrients. It's looks like a pretty educational site, and it's good that it shows about grapes, because a lot of people talk about grapes and they use raisins and stuff for nutrients, and I have to tell them that your grapes and your raisins don't have the ann and fan you need. If they did, all these winemakers wouldn't have spent millions of dollars. Wow, they've actually do some calculations in here on how much nitrogen. This is good. There's a chart. Uh-oh, a chart. Let's see. Oh, yeah. Definitely robbing this shit right now. I will copy it all so people get the credit. They get the credit. Oh, yeah. Love me some charts. Because a picture's worth 1,000 words, man. I can sit and explain things till I'm blue in the face. And, if you're anything like me, as soon as you see it, it makes so much more sense. But, yeah, this gets in. Oh, yeah, that's awesome. It talks about fermate O, fermate K, a lot of different nutrients and what they have and don't have. Awesome. We've happened upon something really good here. Man, even certain nutrients better for red wines and fruity floral. Damn. I know I use different yeast for this, but different nutrients. Wow, that's cool. That's awesome. Well, I'm glad we found this place. Looks like they've got some other stuff here to read too. Malolactic bacteria and nutrient choosing. Oh man. Enzyme choosing, oak and tannin. A lot of people don't realize when in winemaking we buy tannins. It's basically you take a wood and you soak it in water and you leach out all these tannins, and then you just allow the water to evaporate, and the powder left behind is a tannin. A lot of people say, "Oh, it's sawdust." It's not sawdust. It's the powder of the tannins that's left behind when all the water evaporates. And it's used a lot in winemaking to give some bitter tannin, good woody flavors. I use a chestnut tannin for my wines. Finning and stability. This is great for winemaking, especially. Yeah, this is really good. So that's some good reading. That's your assignment for this week, is to read all that. What's up, Chris? Good to see you, brother. All right, let me scroll back. Yeah, there should definitely, yeah, there's sugars in it. Definitely got the sugars in it. I'm saying if you wanted to increase it to thin out some of the yeast nutrients, to add maybe some sugar and water to it to help thin those out if you use too much, instead of having to buy that expensive blue agave. It might affect it, but probably have less effect doing that than having too much nutrients. That was kind of what I was getting at. Yeah, man, we got some really good ham bean soup. We make use a lot of different beans in it. Big old ham hock, marrow, good stuff, man. Okay, the left pipe goes down to a few inches from the bottom, and the right one is at the top. Right, that's correct. Or the feed, the supply line from your boiler goes all the way to the bottom, about an inch off the bottom. Now, one thing that I will say is for those that have like a lid that they put on and the pipe that goes down. Anytime that you have fruit, a lot of times people want to use the fruit in the thumper as well to help kind of infuse flavors. Anytime you do that, make sure that it's pureed to the point where I've seen a lot of people when they stick the lid on their thumper or their jar rig or stuff like that, they don't realize it, but they impale a grate and it gets into their copper and it plugs it up and it builds up pressure and it can cause your steel to explode. So always, if you're using anything in your thumper, a lot of people will put an elbow at the bottom just to keep it from impaling that fruit and getting it stuck in there, so that elbow helps prevent some of that. So just be careful that you don't clog up any lines when you're using it. But yeah, on the supply side, yeah, it'll go all the way down to the bottom of the downcomer. Will go to the bottom, and on the to the condenser will come from the top. Yeah, well, I don't know. Most chemistry classes didn't cover a lot of this. Fortunately, I grew up in Eastern Kentucky, and our teacher understood, the culture and everything. So she kind of angled, a little bit into. We actually did a little distillation and made some alcohol for scientific purposes for lab use only, and that's pretty interesting. It was a lot of fun. Absolutely, absolutely will. And sometimes, Richard, sometimes when they do these, they want to leave a little bit of the sugars behind to kind of give it a specific flavor. They don't want it to ferment dry. So sometimes they intentionally leave some of those sugars in behind. I know some brandy makers do that. They'll leave a little bit of the sugars behind or ferment a little bit early before it gets dry. Because I know when it really gets dry, you can actually that carries over to the distillers. So yeah, she was a brilliant lady. She passed away, I think, about a year ago. Wonderful lady, very intelligent. Her husband was a doctor, and they went away, and he went to school, became a doctor, and did all this stuff. She worked at Kodak Labs and their scientific research and development labs for a long time, and they decided to move back home to Eastern Kentucky when he got close to retirement age, and she decided to teach chemistry there. And she was a blessing, man. She was such a great teacher. One of probably my favorite teacher. Did you? That's some good way. I hope it was a moonshine lab, not a meth lab, though. But yeah, that chemistry, it comes in handy for a lot of things, I guess. Yeah. Now, I think there's like an invertase, Richard. I think we talked about this maybe a month or so ago, but I think invertase or something like that might finish off a molasses from some of those unfermentables. Um, did he? Well, I had to get mine on my own. Got a little bit of winemaking from my grandmother, but they didn't do shine. But I reckon they they had a funeral home and a hardware store. So I know they gave some of the embalming jars away to shiners, made liquor and stuff, because those embalming jars look just like a big whiskey jar, and they had corks in it. This is back in the late 1800s, early 1900s. And back then, bottles, you didn't throw away bottles. They were used, reused, and reused. A mathematician. I like that. That's a good. I like that term, man. That's mathematician. I like it. Invertase. Let me spell it. Yeah, I know when I talk, I got that hick accent. It's hard to understand me sometimes. I'm going to tell them why I can't take the call. But I'd love to. I'm not allergic to them, so I wouldn't mind it at all. Yeah, I got this. My phone's all the time going, man. And I don't mind. I got people message me all the time, 24/7. Roger, he'll call me about 4 in the morning when he wakes up. He goes to bed about 9 or 10, and wakes up about 4 or 5. And he'll give me a call. Are you in bed yet? Yeah. Awesome. Harvest time. So what are they feeding on up there, Tex? Is there any particular flower? I know a lot of common ones, clover, of course, but different times of the year they feed on different things. And I know my dad loves Lynn honey. I guess it comes from a specific tree that has a flower or shrub or tree or something. Have you heard of Lynn honey? Yeah, yeah, yeah. It sure does. Sure does, Richard. That's a good point, brother. Awesome. Up at 4. That's about time I go to bed. I go to bed about 4, 5, 6. I've always been a night owl. I get most of my work done at night. If I have to go out and collect data or something like that during the daytime, I'll do it in the afternoons and come home and work on my report and type it all up and have it out. I do most of my data collection and my job in the afternoons. Dirt. Goldenrod. Interesting. I have no idea what dearth is. I'm damn glad I found the Scott Labs yeast choosing guide. I had no idea there's so many different nutrients and that it gave different flavors like that. That's definitely opened up some new info for me. And charts. It has a little bit of other stuff. So if y'all definitely make a shortcut of that, and it's fairly recent too. So it's updated May 2024. So it's good recent information. But yeah, that Scott's Lab link that I posted earlier, save that to your favorites or somewhere, and read up on that because it's very interesting. I never realized that a lot of people use different nutrients for different flavors and different distillates. I always figured they just all use the same thing. I've always just used the Fermax. 15 a pound. Linden, is it Linden? Linden, okay. From Basswood. That's good to know, man. That's his favorite honey. 15 a pound. Yeah, me too. I don't sleep a lot. Hey, I get tired. I'll take little naps from time to time. Hell, I might even, I've been known to fall asleep damn during a podcast. I've done that a time or two. Just kind of nod off for a minute or two. I've got sleep apnea really bad, so when I do sleep, I don't get good sleep. So I stay tired all the time, but I'm not sleepy, and it's hard for me to sleep. But sometimes I'll just be sitting and I don't even realize it, but I'll just drop right off. We went to the movie the other night with my daughter on her birthday, and sitting there watching the movie, and all of a sudden my daughter elbowing me every time I fell asleep because I might snore a little bit, and I was embarrassing her. Fermented oat seems to be a pretty good selection. A lot of people like the organic. What's going on, Hellbilly? Good to see you, brother. Just chilling, man. Talk about nutrients tonight. We found a site that's got. If you missed it, we post it again. You might be interested in this as well. It definitely looks interesting and something that everybody should read. Uh-oh. Awesome. Yeah, I wasn't sure where it was coming from, but I know that only comes around certain times. I didn't know it didn't come around every year either. But yeah, that's his favorite honey, and I guess it's pretty rare and hard to get, but he loves that Linden honey. I didn't even know how to spell it. Yeah, the Fermo, it's an organic. But I think my sleep apnea, Clint, is causing narcolepsy. I think, me just dropping off. I don't even know it, don't sense it, don't see it coming. It's just like I can be sitting here writing at my desk, and next thing you know, man, I'm just almost like blacking out, man. It's crazy. Get you some honey. Yeah, I wish she was close, so I'd drive over and get some. What state you in, Tex? I can't remember anything. Oh no, you're fine. You're fine. Hell, we'll talk about everything in here. That's definitely, honey. We make mead with that. But yeah, don't put your Venmo information on here. Okay, that's right. Yeah, should have gotten some from you while I was there if I thought about it. I can't remember. I'm sorry. I wish my memory is what it used to be. I'd known that and remembered that. But getting old sucks, man. Starting to lose my thoughts. I couldn't even remember Slobberbox last week. I was sitting there trying to think of Slobberbox. I couldn't. And a few weeks before that is funnel. Just simple fucking words. I can't. They just escape me, man. I don't know. Maybe I'm starting to get a little old and senile. Hell. Man, Vegas get pretty hot. Right in the middle of the desert. I hear the numbers are down in Vegas. Is that true, Hellbilly? That there's less people going there nowadays than in years past? Yeah, I've heard about the killer bees coming up from Mexico. They are a problem. And the strange thing is, I thought killer bees was just like a specific variety of bee, like the murder hornet or something. But it's not. It's like they're like a honeybee, and they actually can convert honeybees into killer bees or some shit. I don't know. I haven't read completely about it, but they're just another honeybee that's aggressive, I guess. Man, my skin's so dry, I get so damn itchy, and then yeah, that's what I've heard, Hillbilly. That numbers are down a little bit this year. Might be the heat and all the weather too. I don't know. Damn, I'm starting to get itchy. I'm gonna have to take me some allergy medicine. Definitely gonna have to take allergy medicine. I don't take it every day like I'm supposed to. I just take it when it gets bad. I don't like depending on a lot of different pills every day. There's no pill I have to take every day. So far, so good. I think they overprescribe a lot of shit, get you dependent on stuff, and kill your livers with shit you really don't need every day. So I like taking shit as needed. But yeah, man, when you see my nose real red, I've been blowing it a lot. It gets so damn itchy, and it feels like my head. You'll see me scratching my head a lot. I get a little eczema in my head, very, very dry skin. On my back, my ears have eczema. It's one of the worst places in the world to get it. I'm dry as a bone. Yeah, next time you get some of that lemon honey, let me know. I definitely want some too from my dad. I want to take some to him. He's up in his 80s and getting a little bit of dementia and having trouble talking and stuff. So anything that makes him happy, I definitely want to try to do. It'd take him death to get him some of that lemon honey. Uh, Yeah, that's a pretty good website. I'm glad we found that. Yeah, that's Scott Labs. At the very bottom of the page, too, they've got some talking about yeast choosing guide, malolactic bacteria and nutrient choosing guides. So that malolactic bacteria is probably a lactobacillus with a malic acid. Then an enzyme choosing guide. Let's just see what some of these are. That looks interesting. Okay, let's talk about some pectic enzyme here. See, this is stuff I need to know. So some of the pectic enzymes, there's more benefits to it than just releasing the juices. Like I said, it breaks down the pulp, releasing trapped juices that are inside those cell walls, decreasing solids, increasing yield, and resulting in higher quality juice. One thing I didn't know was that it releases anthocyanins and tannins, resulting in wines with brighter, more stable color and enhanced structure. And I did know that it also helps clear things, so you don't get it. It doesn't take as long to wait till it gets clear. Get rid of some of that milky color. But it promotes tannin extractions. That's something I didn't consider in the past, but that's a see, now this is the science that gets a little bit beyond me. Some enzymes like beta-glucanase will aid in yeast autolysis, releasing manoproteins, which increase mouthfeel and sweetness perception. See, that's some stuff I didn't know. So maybe there's more benefits to using the pectic enzymes than we once thought. Looks like quite a few different benefits you get from it. Yeah. Yeah, enzymes help break down the glucans and polysaccharides that are colloidal in nature and can make it difficult to filter. Meaning, you just have that milky proteins. So it helps break all that down. And more charts, awesome. Definitely, I have to spend some time reading that this evening. No, we were talking about sometimes people leave a little bit when they're mashing and when they're deciding when to run. A lot of times they'll let their mash stay a little bit sweet. So when they distill it, it'll have a little bit of sweetness carry over or a different taste than if they let it get real dry. Because I know if you let it get real dry into the 0.999, 995 or whatever in that range, if you let it get real dry, that dryness will carry over into the distillate and give it a different, distinct dryness and flavor as well. So, like maybe if you were doing gins and things of that nature, letting it get real super dry would be a good thing because to make a good dry gin. But sometimes I know like some brandy makers um, like to leave a little bit of sweetness in there. Okay, we'll see. So Joe Service from Germany. Hey, how's it going in Germany? He needs him some moonshine. Wild cherry shine. We're in the U.S. We're in the. So how things in Germany these days, brother? Yeah, it's not too tough to make a good cherry wine. I'm not sure what you're talking about. Let me scroll back. Yeah, 99.60. I have no idea what you're talking about, bro. You have to tell me. I missed it. I'm sorry. Yeah, we were just talking about, and yeah, you can add it to corn mash to give it some distinctive flavors, change the flavor profile up a little bit. There's a lot of people that experiment with molasses. Some people don't like it though. A lot of people don't like a real heavy molasses rum. They like a lighter rum with more, I guess, more sugar and less molasses. Uh, it does tend to give a dark, grungy, earthy kind of flavor, but that's what I look for when I use it. So some people, don't like it so much. Awesome. Got 13 true Dever. Um, no, no, not with stainless. I wouldn't, but if you want to do like a sugar wash and run it, you could, but there's really no other than removing. If you really scrub it down really, really well and take like some just rubbing alcohol that you use on your skin. Everybody says, "Oh, you can't use that; it's poisonous." You're putting it in your body on a cut. Okay, I wouldn't drink it, but it's not like that. But um, the reason I say that, there's a lot of polishing compounds and a lot of oils and greases that they use in the stamping and forming process for the pots there in China, and the buffering compounds and buffing compounds and stuff that they use when they polish it and stuff. When I first got mine, I cleaned it. Used Dawn hot water and thought I had it good and clean, but I decided, I'm going to go ahead and I got a white rag and some just regular isopropyl alcohol that you use on cuts and stuff. You can use heads if you have some, fours, whatever. uh, and I really, really hard. I put a lot of elbow grease and rubbed all inside the pot. I don't care about the outside. And I was getting some of the rubbing compounds and stuff out. So, you know, cleaning it like that would probably be just as beneficial as any kind of sacrificial run. But most people do the sacrificial runs for copper, and the copper compounds and stuff. But running, some water through it to test everything to make sure that you don't have any leaks or anything of that nature that you're going to have to deal with later, or broken gaskets or something like that. Certainly better to find while you're running some boiling water than when you're running some real alcohol. So it's sometimes it's good to do a little sacrificial run just to check for leaks and things like that, whether it be alcohol or just boiling some water, running through it, help cleaning out some of those things. But there's always going to be things, that alcohol will remove that Dawn dishwashing liquid and hot water won't. So uh, it's not as critical to do it than if you had like a copper setup. But um, again, clean that pot out real well with some alcohol and look at that white rag when you get done. Tell me it doesn't have some of that rubbing compound in it. It gets gray. It picks up quite a bit. Yeah, you can use Cairo. Absolutely. That's just corn sugars. Absolutely. Definitely use it. Don't let it go to waste. That's good sugars. Yeah, there's lacto, it's definitely beneficial, if you want to go that route. Just if you do, just make sure that you clean everything up good afterwards, because what happens if you use it, it gets in your stuff, and then the next time you make a mash, it comes early because it's heavily present, and you don't really want it to come early. I mean, it can, but then you have to go to the trouble of pasteurizing and to kill it off, and then add more sugars for the actual yeast to eat. So you can if it does come early, you can let it run its course, and then physically stop it with pasteurization, and then add. But you have to add more sugars back because it consumes a lot of sugars, and it will consume alcohol as well. So after you kill it off with heat, then you have to go back and add more sugar and then yeast to of course get the alcohol built up. So it's best when it happens late. That way you've already got most of your sugars are consumed. You got a lot of alcohol produced, so the little bit that it consumes from like a 1.020 or 010 down to 0 or dry um, won't be that significant, and you'll still get the benefit of the soft creaminess of it. Right. That's awesome, brother. Didn't add sugar, so it's like a true brandy. I mean, it starts. It's a low, it's not a very high producing when you do it that way, but you certainly will get a lot more flavor carried forward when you use less sugars and more of just the fruit. Yeah, a lot of people run vinegar. That the acidic vinegar will help remove a lot of things that the acid remove, and then a lot of people run the just water through it afterwards. That way, anything water soluble gets removed. But always, if you can, anything new like that, my nose kill me. Get some alcohol again on a check it on a white rag. Though. Get a good white rag and clean rag. Put that alcohol on it. Just really get into it. Get some elbow grease into it. Rub the inside of that pot all the way around. Clean it out real good, and then look at that. You'll see some rubbing compound on there, so it'll definitely help to do that. But is the 13.2 Weber you got? Is it the 3-pot still? Is it a football still, or what type of head do they have on? Yeah, I agree. And like we were talking about, you do the vinegar run, so anything that's removed by acidics will be removed by the acidity of the vinegar, and then anything that would be dissolvable water soluble, you get with the water boiling, and if you do a sugar wash and run some alcohol through it, that'll also remove anything that's alcohol soluble. So there's certain things that non-dishwater, that's not going to cut. Hot water is not going to cut. Acid is not going to cut. Only alcohol would cut because all the other things they're not soluble to it. So it certainly helps, but a little less critical with a stainless than with a copper one. But still, clean the inside with that alcohol and see what I'm talking about, because I think that'll do actually more than just a run. But I think you could do a run and then do that afterwards, and you're still going to get a lot of that gray stuff, man, because it was bad. Awesome. Yes, Cyrus, he's good, man. I enjoy watching some of his videos. That's good. Well, I hope it turns out perfect for you, brother. But yeah, a good first run for a lot of people would be just a simple sugar wash. Sugar, water, a little bit of nutrients, and of course your oyster shells and simple bread yeast or some cheap, just cheap everything. Just to make some cheap alcohol to run. Yeah, you definitely want your lacto to come late in fermentation. It's best when it comes along at the end. You definitely don't want it at the beginning, competing with the yeast. What's going on, Monty? How's it going, brother? Oh yeah, it's that time. Thank you, man. I was getting mighty fucking thirsty. You can tell. Maybe it'll help this congestion, all these damn sniffles and allergies I'm getting. And again, thanks to Jeff Singleton for the weeded Bloody Butcher sour mash. About 135 proof he's trying to kill me with. Good stuff, Jeff. He makes a damn good tequila too. He needs to put that on the shelf. I'm thinking he may end up going commercial for too long. I think he's getting some offers. Star saying, yeah, to get rid of the lacto, that or hot, the hot temperature will kill that lacto off pretty well too. What's going on over in Lancaster and Gary County? I see. Yeah. Yeah, just clean it all up real good, and keep an eye on your gaskets and keep an eye on those. Renowned, the 3-pot stills are renowned for those gaskets, cracking on you and leaking, and a lot of people, with the thumper being on top of the steel, it's okay, but they have condensers sitting up there too, and it gets a little hot and it's a little undersized. So definitely some things to look at to modify, in the future. Let's see here. Y'all don't want to hear and see me blow my nose. That's nasty. But yeah, my allergies hit me pretty hard here. But yeah, eventually you'll want to replace those lines. This probably has the flex lines and everything on it. You'll want to replace those with some solid copper and or some flexible copper. I like the solid, works pretty well, and maybe increase the worm size a little bit. And I tell you another thing is using oats will help give you a good mouthfeel, a good soft, creamy mouthfeel. Not just like a lacto, but similar, and you won't have to deal with the infections and stuff. But it gives a good flavor and mouthfeel, kind of comparable, but different, but still comparable. First timer, what's up, Rocky? Did you, boy? That's cool. Well, when I was looking for something to use inside during the winters, I looked really hard at those digiboils, and they're really nice. And they've also got like an extension that you can put on there. You can just bolt onto the sides and increase the size of them. Very, very interesting. I was if I made beer, I'd have jumped all over it because the way it had the sparging, the
sparging column and everything to rinse. And one thing I didn't like about it though was that the burner was built in, so when that goes out, basically the whole unit is not, you're going to have to replace the burner somehow inside there, the coil element. So I worried about that. What would happen when that element went out? If I just be out a whole steel, I would, if it's replaceable, serviceable, I don't know. But I was intrigued by them, and I like the looks of them. And they make a dome for them, a copper dome for them. Uh, I guess you have something like that if you're getting a column put on it. But yeah, I like the Digiboil. They T500. There's several that are designed just the same. There is a modification that some people came up with. Once your warranty's up, that modified, I guess, the coil, instead of having a low, medium, high, it combined them and made it get real hot or something. I would be weary of that because I'd hate to have to replace it. Um, but I've not used the Digiboil. I know quite a few people that have them and have used them, and they all seem to like them pretty well. But I know it's really good for making beer and stuff too. It's a lot of the beer makers really love them and swear by them. All right, brother. Got to be up early, man. At 4 a.m. comes early. Yeah. Well, just not going copper, but adding copper. Just copper lines to it. So uh, a lot on the lid where just you can add a copper pipe instead of like the flex lines that are on there. Uh, you can add the copper to it and probably can solder it in there and make it a permanent fitting instead of a compression fitting or something like that would be good. And then make it a larger diameter line. I know the ones they have on there are generally undersized, but the biggest thing is replacing those lines and the condenser. The condensers on it are a problem. It's hard to keep them the right temperature. You're always having to sync up. One good thing you can do is get you a thing of water, these, and freeze them up, and they sit pretty well inside that worm coil. You might have to bend one to get it to fit in there, but if it's frozen, it'll sit in there pretty well and help regulate your temperature. But it's hard to circulate if you were just using water and no ice like that. It would be hard to circulate enough water in that little pot because it comes in through the bottom and it exits out the top there, and that little hole you really can't exit out a lot. So to get a proper temperature, you'd have to increase the flow so much that it just overflows. So increasing the size of that worm and putting it like get you a coil, and what a lot of people do is they just go ahead and get some refrigeration line, the copper refrigeration line, not one that's been used because that has some bad oils and stuff in it, but new that comes in a coil, right? And it's already coiled up for you. Don't buy a stick and try to bend it. Crazy hard and just too much trouble. But you can make you a bucket, 5-gallon bucket, and some copper in that, and make you a pretty good one. And that way, if you upgrade in the future, to a bigger steel, 20, 30, it'll still handle it, and you won't ever have to change your worm out unless you go big, but that's beyond the hobby. So, but yeah, getting used to it and everything, that's absolutely. Yeah, I know the feeling there, man. Yeah, yeah, talk to text doesn't convert that hick accent of mine very well. I hate to hear that, brother. I'm not very good at typing on the phone. My fingers are so fat. I always double strike or hit the letter next to it, and I'm never really fooled with talk to text because that I don't know why the hell I'm hearing those damn things. What am I supposed to be listening to? I don't know. That didn't help with my ears and earbud phones on it. I think that's what made my damn ears get eczema on them damn wild hair. But yeah, I think that those earphones what help drown my damn ears out. But yeah, my allergies are bad, bad, bad. Itching all over. Usually it's just my head here that itches and my ears, and my nose and everything's going. I am definitely going to have to take me some meds here soon. My whole body's starting to itch though, so I definitely need to take my allergy medicine. I don't know what the hell's wrong with me. Getting old sucks, that's for sure. All right. Has anybody else got any questions? If not, we might just shut her down at 10. I knew I was going to try to shut it down a little early tonight because I wasn't feeling well. Now I know why. My damn allergies are kicking in. I'm going to have to go take my meds and rest. They make me sleepy as hell when I take them. That's one time I do get pretty good rest is when I take those. Maybe I should take them more often. I get more rest. But man, if those things don't make me sleepier and shit, I usually don't get to bed about 4, 5, 6 in the morning and wake up about noon if I'm lucky to get that much sleep. But yeah, I'm really itchy. Well, I guess we're gonna call her a night. It's a little slow Wednesday. Everybody getting their kids back to school, or some people on vacation, and didn't get as many as usual in here tonight. Hopefully, everybody's processing what they learned last week. Maybe I taught them all they need to know. They don't need me anymore. But yeah, it was pretty good little beginning to end session last week. We didn't get a touch on every single thing. There was a few little details here and there I think we could have maybe spent a little bit more time on. Yeah, that's what I've got, Samsung, and it's worthless, useless. It just frustrates me more than anything. I end up having to go back and correct half the words, and it's like shit. I think I've been better off just typing it out. But I always, most of my double strikes that you could still tell what I was meaning to say. That's awesome, man. I look forward to seeing it. Did you post it online? Post it in the militia page or group. I'm usually grinning. I try to stay happy, man. I can't let things get me down. If I did, Lord, there's so many things to get me down. If I let them get me down, I'd just be all depressed all the time. It was. I don't even do the TikTok. Put it in the militia page. Y'all in the militia page, aren't you? Good seeing you, Richard. Good seeing everybody on here. Well, everybody have a good rest of your week. I'm going to go ahead and log off here in a little bit. I am going to try to finish my beginning to end in text. Maybe I'll try one of these text to type things. That's kind of, I appreciate it, brother. I'd like to see it. Everybody else would too. It was a good time down at Maggie. It was good meeting y'all. Met a lot of people. But I'll try to do the beginning to end and touch on some things maybe that we missed and might add a little bit of science to it. Not too much. I'm not going to get too scientific, but I was really stoked about the new chart that I found. Compliments of Giancarlo Gelpi or something. But yeah, it's a good little chart that I'll be able to refer to later when I talk about which which jars you want to keep, like if for aging long term. You know, I mentioned that before, and a lot of people, oh, it's bullshit. You know, you don't want to do that. And it's like, yeah, I was really glad to see this chart to talk about. You know, I'm not the only one that seems to think that's a good idea and has worked for him in the past. So a lot of people that do a lot of arguing and stuff do it just to be trolling and don't really have much knowledge in it, I'm afraid. But anyway, it's good seeing everybody tonight. Hope everybody has a great week. Hope it works. It's better than mine started. I'm going to go get my medicine and probably pass out. I'll be up early tomorrow. But yeah, I'm going to try to get the A to Z done, and just simple corn mashes in a, you know, maybe a 2 or 3 grain mash, step down instead of up, a reverse step process, I guess you could say. So we'll try to get that done and out, and I will put this new chart in the DIY files and in the militia files for those that want to refer back to it. Good seeing everybody. Yeah, y'all hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already. Go to that Distilling 101 podcast page. Let me give the message here. Let me give y'all a link for that. They make it tough to hit the follow button. I don't know why in the hell they do it, but there's the Distilling 101 page. If you go to that and like and subscribe and follow it, anytime I go live, you definitely should get a notification, because that's the main page that I use. And that went out to everywhere but one. Interesting. Which one was that? Anyhow, y'all have a great week. We will see you this weekend on Saturday. So hopefully you'll get those mashes done and have some questions for me. And we'll talk to y'all then. Till then, shine on. Peace out. Love y'all. Take care.